Skalkaho Mountain Sasquatch and Gash Creek Bigfoot. I saw this footage that Duke Sullivan filmed on Skalkaho Mountain in Montana. Because I have investigated a few Bigfoot encounters about 20 miles from this location not long ago, it sparked my interest to have a closer look. I have stabilized the footage and enlarged the subject by 200%. As Duke pans past the very large Bigfoot-like subject, it seems to raise its head and look right at him before backing behind the two trees as Duke begins to walk away.
Out here by myself, down near the camp. Other than the sound of the breeze, it is dead still.
Castle Crag Bigfoot near Gash Creek. McCall writes RMSO. I don't know the exact date, but in September of 2023, I went on a hike in the Bitterroot Mountain Range near Victor, Montana. I was with my brother and his girlfriend, so I was third wheeling and just enjoying my quiet time while they chatted and giggled and were cute together. It was definitely a long hike. We were gone for around 6 hours that day. I had a fanny pack, but my brother and his girlfriend were training up for backpacking and had heavy packs, so we took frequent breaks for them to catch their breath. On one of those breaks, I started staring across the valley to the mountain next to us. I didn't have any binoculars, so I was staring at the clear meadow that was all green and wondering if the green was the grass or if it was moss. The large meadow was surrounded by forest on one side that was notably burnt in a fire and some forest that escaped the blaze. The rest of the surroundings went from green and smooth-looking to there being large boulders that had fallen from its rocky mountain cliffs from above. In the middle of the green clearing there was a massive rock that appeared to be obelisk in shape. As a fan of finding Montana megaliths, I thought the rock looked rather intentionally placed there. I was far enough away that I can't give an actual guess at the size of the rock, but I would say it was at least 13 feet tall. I was staring intensely at the rock and letting my imagination wander about its origin, as it was too far away from any other boulder rock fall off the mountain. When I suddenly got the intense feeling of someone watching me, it was accompanied by a feeling of brief panic as well, and I went immediately from staring at the rock to the lone black burnt tree maybe 6 feet away from it. The only tree in the clearing. All the other trees of the forest were at least an estimated football field away. When I stared at the tree, expecting some kind of movement since my eyes were drawn there, I was already a fan of the idea of Bigfoot since childhood, and I had recently been listening to the Sasquatch Chronicles podcast for fun. Upon arriving to the trailhead, I even jokingly told my brother I would be squatching during our hike. As I stared at the tree, the feeling intensified. The panic seemed to fade, and I felt a tingling start at the top of my head that was really weird to me. I wasn't very spiritual before the encounter, but upon adopting a New Age spiritualism after this incident, I would say that the feeling was how it felt when my crown chakra would open up during meditative states. After that tingling happened, I felt a feeling of total peace, and it was beautiful. The black tree didn't move an inch, even though I was highly suspicious of it. I also have this memory of there being a bluish-purple flower at the peripherals of my vision when the peaceful feeling came. The color reminded me of chicorée root flower blooms, but I suspect what I saw based on the shape and color was the Egyptian blue lotus flower, something I have since adopted into my spiritual practices in the form of a nightly tea. This whole stare down with the tree probably lasted 2 minutes. My brother and his girlfriend had been happily chatting this whole time several feet behind me. I turned to tell my brother about my weird feeling and suspicious burnt tree trunk, but as I stared at him I remembered that he had a bear gun. As a peaceful fan of all things Bigfoot, I didn't want to risk my brother panicking. I had looked away from the tree for about 3 to 5 seconds max. When I turned back, the obelisk rock remained in the clearing, but the whole black tree trunk was gone. It was at least 9 feet tall and could not be found. Naturally, I looked downhill from the obelisk first, just in case the tree had fallen and began rolling down the mountainside. There was nothing in the green clearing below, no sign of a fallen tree. I then went into a shock and awe. I didn't talk much for the next hour or so of our hike. I decided the only logical explanation that fit my beliefs was that I had seen a black-haired Bigfoot. It sensed my gaze, panicked, generally read my intentions, and communicated peace through telepathic-like means, and ran and hid the first chance it got when I looked away. I do believe, even with its massive size, it could have literally taken 1 or 2 steps and hid itself behind the obelisk. If it managed to run to the forest in those few seconds, I would be extra horrified at how fast it was. It would have been a mostly uphill run to the partially blazed forest above. What I saw was massive and could have been a bear. It appeared to be a Bigfoot turned sideways for a side profile. The top of it did have a conical shape. No branches, no obvious broken off branches or nubs. I just originally assumed the tree was burnt many years before and had been weathered down to a smooth charcoal shape. I took 0 photos on that hike trip, even though my phone was in my pocket the whole time. I do intend to hike back to the location next summer for pictures, and if possible, to measure the obelisk rock and send pictures of it to Julie Ryder. It might be on private land, though, so I'll have to go with my brother since he has apps to be able to know if places are public or private. I did not even think of trying to go to the location to look for footprints. Between me and the other side of the valley, there was a creek that was raging with ice melt that wouldn't be safe to cross. I would have to cross early on where a single ancient bridge was falling apart, and that was back at the beginning of our hike. So that was my Bigfoot sighting and spiritual awakening for me all in one. Now I host the Helena Bigfoot Believers Hiking Club, and we go on hikes a few times a month. The only weird thing that has happened twice now on such hikes is some group members being able to hear a heavy breathing panting that sounds massive. Many assume they are hearing a bear, but there is absolutely nothing around us even though it sounds so close. It comes and then it goes. Never an actual sign left of physical flesh and blood creature. I heard this once before as well and did not scare me oddly enough. Having it happen again with 2 members of the hiking group makes me think it was something a little bit supernatural that fits under my woo-woo ideas about Bigfoot, like a cloaking ability or being of 2 dimensions at once. It was really fun and I didn't feel in danger. But I saw those who heard it were scared initially. Very smart and logical men who loved hiking and never experienced that before. Everyone had been resting for several minutes as well already before their strange auditory experience. So no one's blood should have been pumping heavily through their ears to create such a sound. That's all I got for my Bigfoot experience. I hope you found it interesting. RMSL responds, "Hi, McCall. This reminds me of a place in Montana where Duke from World Bigfoot Central captured a dark color Bigfoot-shaped creature peeking at him from the side of a large boulder when he zoomed his camera into some pinnacle-shaped boulders along a mountain ridge. I hope you guys enjoyed these Bigfoot encounters. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatching." Some of the most aggressive Bigfoot sighting reports that we've got have been out of the Montana area. It's a particularly scary place to search for Bigfoot. They've got grizzly bears, black bears, and then these aggressive Bigfoot sighting reports. It's Jenny and I's least favorite place to tent camp. Unfortunately, some of these places you can't get a trailer back into, so we're forced to stay in a tent, and it creates a lot of sleepless nights because we know about the grizzly bears in the area. We find their tracks, the black bear tracks. We hear them in and around the camp, sometimes at night. And then on this particular expedition, we heard a big old roar up on top of the mountain. The elk herd in the area just scattered after that big old roar. We don't know what it was, but then the rest of the night after we went to bed, something paced back and forth on the opposite side of the river of us. Kind of reminded me of the Bauman incident. They kind of had that going on before they were attacked by the Bigfoot. And here's one particularly aggressive Bigfoot sighting that we received from a woman named Daphne. We had a Bigfoot outside our cabin, northwest Montana. Such a terrible stench. My husband was a Flathead Indian. He passed away. And we lived about 4 miles north of Arley, Montana. It was he who said, "It is the big ape." It was black, and the stink was that what we first thought odd. Our 2 police dogs took off. A large Hungarian breed of dog called the Kuvaz dog stayed by the cabin door barking. Our 5 cats were just creeped out, crawling around on the floor like a centipede would, with their nostrils flaring and hugging the outside of the cabin in their escape. I thought it had to be a black bear that was outside, but Louis, my husband, says what it was. It was about 9 foot tall, wide shoulders. This happened about 11 p.m. It took the cow stomach that we had stored outside of the cabin. The butcher dropped it off for use because Louis liked tripe, so he wanted me to get the tripe out. That stomach weighed so much that I just couldn't do it by myself, so I had to store it until I had some help to move that heavy stomach around. But the Bigfoot had no problem lifting the stomach up under its left arm and striding off up the hill towards the forest. It was big and black, and we had a hard time seeing it other than the profile as it strode up off the hill because we just had a small bulb porch light in this tiny log cabin that we lived in that was 80 years old. I would like to thank Daphne for relaying her family's Bigfoot experience to us at RMSO. There are many Bigfoot sighting reports in Montana. We have been on several expeditions because of those sightings to the northwest side of that state.